the Prime Minister's main motion asking Parliament to support her in going back to the EU to seek renegotiations on the backstop was voted down by a majority of 45. About 30 members of the ERG decided to abstain from the vote. The Prime Minister was not present in the House of Commons to hear the result read out by Speaker John Bercow. She now faces an uphill struggle in going back to Brussels, with European leaders expected to push her into accepting the support of Jeremy Corbyn. The Labour leader has said his party will back Brexit with closer ties to the EU, including a customs union and further measures likely to infuriate Brexiters. Britain is a waning country-Dutch. Prime Minister Mark RutteEarlier, Downing Street hit back at Mark Rutte after the Dutch Prime Minister slammed a post-Brexit Britain as too small to matter on the world stage. Mr. Rutte enraged the Prime Minister, leading Brexiters and the 17.4 million who voted to leave the European Union with the provocative comment. He went on to label the UK as weak for quitting the bloc and insinuated Britain's economy would slump after Brexit Day. The Dutch PM said, "The country that will be weakened by Brexit is the United Kingdom. It is already weakening. It is a waning country compared to 2 or 3 years ago. It is going to become a middling economy out in the Atlantic Ocean. It is neither the US nor the EU. It is too small to appear on the world stage on its own." The Prime Minister's official spokesman lashed back at Amsterdam, saying, "I disagree entirely. Employment is at a record high. Exports are at a record high. Companies are continuing to invest in the UK. Deloitte named the UK as Europe's leading destination for foreign direct investment. And London is the world's top city for investment just last month." Meanwhile, German businesses are panicking as Brexit Day approaches, with the German Chambers of Commerce warning companies are navigating without a compass amid uncertainties over their future relationship with the UK. Theresa May is facing another tough night in the House of Commons. Image Getty. Brexit is a big burden for Germany's businesses, which are experiencing difficulties in preparing for Brexit as they are navigating without a compass less than 45 days before the UK's departure from the EU, DIHK Foreign Trade Chief Volker Treyer said on Thursday. A survey among 1,500 companies with business ties to the UK revealed which are the biggest worries related to the UK leaving the EU for these companies. The majority of the businesses said they regard as the highest factor of risk the additional charges caused by tariff bureaucracy. The research added only 1 in 5 surveyed companies said the business in Britain was going well, while 70% expected it to worsen in 2019. Number 10 is furious with Rutte over the Dutch PM's comments. Image Getty. Mr. Treyer said, "Companies see the greatest risk factor for the business in the impending additional effort and expense for customs bureaucracy. In the worst-case scenario, up to 10 million new customs declarations would be necessary in the event of a disorderly exit." This comes after it was announced Germany narrowly escaped falling into recession at the end of 2018. The latest figures from the Federal Statistics Office revealed gross domestic product (GDP) in Europe's biggest economy, valued at £3.1 trillion, remained unchanged in the final 3 months of 2018. See below for live Brexit updates. 10:47 p.m. update. EU remains silent on May's Commons defeat. Jean-Claude Juncker, Donald Tusk and Michel Barnier have all remained surprisingly silent this evening on the Prime Minister's 8th humiliating Brexit defeat in the House of Commons. They had taken to social media to explain the EU's position following Mrs May's previous defeats. However, the Twitter accounts remained quiet this evening. 10:29 p.m. update. Corbyn to hold talks with Barnier and Verhofstadt as trio plot to undermine May's Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn will travel to Brussels next week to hold crunch talks with top EU diplomats as the bloc attempts to strong-arm Theresa May into accepting a soft Brexit. The Prime Minister is expected to come under increasing pressure from the European Union to bow to Labour's demands for a customs union in the coming days. Mr. Corbyn will meet the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier and the European Parliament's Brexit representative Guy Verhofstadt next week as the trio plot a course to undermine Mrs May and force her into agreeing changes to the withdrawal agreement that will satisfy enough Labour MPs to see it ratified by Westminster. The Prime Minister will also visit Brussels next week to update European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, but it is not believed her visit will overlap with Mr. Corbyn's. EU sources told The Guardian they expect Jeremy Corbyn to provide more details on his recent offer to Theresa May about how Labour would support a divorce deal. Labour wants a customs union, close alignment with the single market and guarantees workers' rights protection in exchange for supporting a deal which contains a backstop. However, that soft Brexit approach would anger Tory Brexiteers, a line which Theresa May has refused to cross. Jeremy Corbyn will plot a soft Brexit in Brussels. Talks with Michel Barnier and Guy Verhofstadt. Image Getty, 9:43 p.m. update. Brexiters sent May Valentine's Day card. Brexiters from Leave Means Leave have hand-delivered a romantic Valentine's Day card. The giant greeting card was personally taken to Downing Street by the group's campaign manager ahead of tonight's vote on Mrs. May's motion. The pressure group then demonstrated outside Parliament all afternoon, with Valentine's puns including calls for the UK to get out of the singles market after Mrs. May's 8th Commons Brexit defeat. A spokesman for Leave Means Leave tweeted, "Parliament has demonstrated its opposition to the PM's deal again and has sensibly left no deal on the table. It should be obvious to the PM now that she needs to radically change her deal or go." World Trade Organization, Leave Means Leave have sent a Valentine's Day card to Theresa May. Image Twitter, @LeaveMansLeave 9:12 p.m. update. May held constructive calls with EU leaders. Theresa May held constructive phone calls with European leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, about securing legally binding changes to the backstop before her humiliating House of Commons defeat today. May spoke to the leaders of Sweden, Portugal and Austria. A Number 10 spokeswoman said, "The Prime Minister has been talking throughout the course of this week and last week to European leaders about the need to secure legally binding changes to the backstop. They were constructive conversations and it is clear that everybody wants us to be able to leave with a deal." 8:28 p.m. update. Tory minister accuses ERG of Brexit treachery. Business Minister Richard Harrington has accused members of the ERG of treachery over Brexit. Remainer Mr. Harrington hit out at the Eurosceptic group, saying they are not Conservatives and should defect to Nigel Farage's new Brexit party. Referring to the ERG, the minister told the House magazine, "The Prime Minister has done a pretty good job of standing up to them up till now, but they were drinking champagne to celebrate her losing her deal and I regard it as being treachery. I read that Nigel Farage is setting up a new party called Brexit, and if I were them I'd be looking at that because that seems to reflect their views more than the Conservative Party does. They should read carefully what that party's got to offer, because in my view they're not Conservatives." Mr. Harrington also dismissed the Malthouse Compromise, which this evening ERG Deputy Steve Baker urged the Prime Minister to adopt as fanciful nonsense. The minister said, "It's basically regurgitated Canada Plus, which we know is not at all suited to our close relationship with the European Union, plus a bit of glorified number plate recognition kit which they've got there anyway." Responding to the treachery remark, Mr. Baker told ITV, "Richard has always been a great friend and colleague. I regret we have not done more to persuade him of the reasonableness of our position, and I look forward to sitting down calmly for a chat." Business Minister Richard Harrington has accused ERG members of Brexit treachery. Image Twitter, @Richard4 Watford, 7:34 p.m. update. Cabinet Minister opens up on disappointing night for the government. Cabinet Minister David Mundell has said tonight was disappointing for the government but not significant in the long term. The Secretary of State for Scotland added he still expects a meaningful vote to be held in 2 weeks. Vote disappointing, but not significant in long term. More important is PM still has additional time to negotiate deal revisals. Parliament said it needs hopefully allows meaningful vote at end of month when clear only option. Those who don't want no deal is backing PM's deal. David Mundell, @David Mundell UCT, February 14, 20,197.15 p.m. update. Stats show Extent of Tory rebellion. The full extent of tonight's Tory rebellion has been revealed in the House of Commons as division list. A breakdown shows exactly how the different parties voted. The motion was supported by 258 MPs in total, including 243 Conservatives, 10 DUP, 4 Labour rebels and 2 independents. However, 5 Conservative MPs voted against the government, which combined with the 67 who abstained condemned Theresa May to yet another Brexit defeat. The Tory quintet, Brexiteers Peterbone, Sir Christopher Chope, Philip Hollobone, Anne-Marie Morris and Remainer Sarah Wollaston, were joined by 244 Labour MPs, 35 from the SNP, 11 Liberal Democrats, 4 Plaid Cymru, 3 Independents and Caroline Lucas from the Green Party. Vote tally out: 67 Tories abstained, close to a quarter, 57 Brexiteers, 10 Remainers including both Johnsons, Boris and Joe, Tom Newton Dunn, at T. Newton Dunn. February 14, 20,196.26 p.m. Update: Theresa May blames Jeremy Corbyn for tonight's defeat. Downing Street has said Jeremy Corbyn is responsible for Theresa May's stinging defeat in the House of Commons tonight. The Prime Minister has vowed to continue with Brexit negotiations and go back to Brussels to secure legally binding changes to the backstop. A Number 10 spokesman said, Jeremy Corbyn yet again put partisan considerations ahead of the national interest, and yet again, by voting against the government's motion, he is in effect voting to make no deal more likely. While we didn't secure the support of the Commons this evening, the Prime Minister continues to believe, and the debate itself indicated, that far from objecting to securing changes to the backstop that will allow us to leave with a deal, there was a concern from some Conservative colleagues about taking no deal off the table at this stage. The motion on the 29th of January remains the only one the House of Commons has passed expressing what it does want, and that is legally binding changes to address concerns about the backstop. The government will continue to pursue this with the EU to ensure we leave on time on the 29th of March, 6:17 p.m. Update: Prime Minister should adopt in Malthouse Compromise, says ERG Deputy Jeremy Baker, Deputy Chair of the European Research Group, has insisted the Prime Minister adopt the so-called Malthouse Compromise. Speaking in Parliament just before the Brexit debate was wrapped up, Mr. Baker said, "There is a majority in this House for replacing the backstop with alternative arrangements. What rests upon that majority is what is known as the Malthouse Compromise. The government should adopt that compromise and enjoy majority for it." ERG Deputy Chair Steve Baker has insisted the Prime Minister adopt the Malthouse Compromise. Image Parliament.live, 6:10 p.m. Update: Remainer Tory says the ERG is pushing for no-deal Brexit. Nick Bowles has slammed the ERG members who abstained from tonight's vote on Theresa May's motion, saying hardline Brexiters will stop at nothing to make sure Britain leaves the EU without a deal. Maybe, just maybe, the penny will now drop with Prime Minister and her chief whip that the hardliners in the ERG want a no-deal Brexit and will stop at nothing to get it. Responsible MPs of all parties must come together on 27th and 28th March and stop them. Nick Bowles MP. Nick Bowles, February 14, 2019. Theresa May was conspicuously absent from the front bench as the results of her motion were announced. Image MGO, Parliament TV via Reuters, 5:53 p.m. Update: Corbyn demands May outline next steps. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has demanded Theresa May come back to the House of Commons and explain the next steps of her Brexit plan. He said Mrs. May cannot keep ignoring Parliament and ploughing on to March 29 without a plan, adding, "She cannot keep running down the clock." Mr. Corbyn said, "Tonight's vote shows there is no majority for the government's course of action. It is surprising the Prime Minister is not even here. I was going to ask her to come to the dispatch box now and admit her strategy has failed and come forward to the House a coherent plan that can deal with the stresses and anxieties that so many people all over this country are feeling." The Speaker explained there was no obligation for the Prime Minister to be present and offered Stephen Barclay the chance to respond to Mr. Corbyn. but the Brexit secretary declined. 5:44 p.m. update. May defeated. Theresa May's motion has been defeated. Ayes to the right, 258 noes to the left, 303. It leaves the Prime Minister's hand significantly weakened in trying to renegotiate the backstop with the European Union. 5:31 p.m. update. MPs voting on main government amendment. Theresa May's main amendment, calling on MPs to support her position of going back to Brussels to reopen withdrawal agreement negotiations over the backstop, is now being voted on. ERG members have said they're split, and not as one, with some deciding to vote for the motion and other expected to abstain. An ERG MP texts, "Split. We are not as one on this." Adam Payne at Adam Payne 26, February 14, 2019. Also, a ERG MP just walked past us and told me they were voting for the government motion, calling abstaining pointless. Jessica Elgott at Jessica Elgott, February 14. 20,195.29 p.m. update. SNP amendment voted down. Ian Blackford's amendment has failed. Ayes to the right, 93. Noes to the left, 3,155.18 p.m. update. MPs considering SNP amendment. EMPs are now voting on SNP Westminster leader Ian Blackford's amendment, which demands the government ask Brussels to extend Article 50 and delay Brexit by at least 3 months. That would trigger European Parliament elections in the UK on May 26.5.15 p.m. MPs vote against Labour amendment. Ayes to the right, 306. Noes to the left, 322. That relieves a bit of pressure on the Prime Minister, allowing her to continue Brexit negotiations at her own pace rather than being tied to secure a revised deal with Brussels in less than 2 weeks. 5:09 p.m. update. Sobri amendment. Ofana Sobri has pulled her amendment calling for the Prime Minister to publish no-deal advice after the government said it would do so. That leaves only the SNP's amendment left to be voted on before MPs decide on the main government motion. MPs are filing back into the Commons after voting on Labour's amendment, with the results expected imminently. Government has agreed to meet
to identify and then publish the relevant papers detailing the devastating effect.
No need to push my amendment to a vote. Back on February 27, Anna Sobri MP at Anna Sobri, February 14, 20,195.04 p.m. update. MPs begin voting. MPs are now voting on the Labour amendment, which calls for a meaningful vote by February 27.5.02 p.m. ERG to abstain from government motion, and the ERG has decided to abstain from the main government motion being put before MPs tonight in a huge blow to the Prime Minister, The Guardian is reporting. Without the support of the ERG, there is now a significant chance the government will lose the vote on its motion, plunging the Brexit mess into further chaos. If May loses the main motion vote, it will weaken her hand further in negotiating alternative arrangements to the backstop, and the EU will likely increase pressure on her to do a deal with Jeremy Corbyn, including a customs union, which would see the UK leaving the EU with a closer relationship to the bloc than many Brexiters want. 4:31 p.m. update. European Research Group meeting now. The influential group of Eurosceptics is meeting now to decide how to vote on the amendments and Prime Minister's motion. Later this evening, the meeting, chaired by Jacob Rees-Mogg, began at 4 p.m. ahead of the votes commencing at 5 p.m. 4:23 p.m. update. Tory MP Grieve demands May rules out no deal, threatens to pull support for government during the debate. Pro-Remain Tory MP Dominic Grieve said Britain would be better off staying the EU. He likened the threat to leave without a deal to a toddler saying they would hold their breath until they get the present they want. Mr. Grieve demanded the government rule out no-deal Brexit and said his previous support for the Prime Minister could run out completely if the government continues to act in a crazy fashion. Dominic Grieve has said the UK would be better off staying in the EU and demanded ruling out no deal. Image Parliament.live. 4:12 p.m. update. What will MPs be voting on later? MPs are currently debating a motion put forward by the Prime Minister and 3 further amendments to the withdrawal agreement proposed by backbenchers, and will begin voting at 5 p.m. The Prime Minister's motion asks MPs to back her statement on February 12 and in doing so, reiterate the Commons' support for the approach to leaving the EU expressed by this House on January 29 and notes that discussions between the UK and the EU on the Northern Ireland backstop are ongoing. Eurosceptic MPs are divided over the motion, with some saying it would mean voting for the withdrawal agreement to be renegotiated, which they want, but taking no deal off the table, a move which they argue would weaken the Prime Minister's hand in further talks. The first amendment that will be voted on is Labour's, which demands the government hold a meaningful vote by February 27. MPs will then consider Remainer Anna Soubry's amendment, which would order the government to publish its advice on how a no-deal Brexit would impact the UK within 7 days. SNP Westminster leader Ian Blackford's amendment asks the government to extend Article 50 and delay Brexit by at least 3 months. None of the amendments would be legally binding if passed, but the government could be at risk of holding Parliament in contempt again if they did not follow through on MPs' wishes. Earlier, Jacob Rees-Mogg has said Brexiteers are highly unlikely to vote against the government, but former Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab has hinted he will rebel, saying, "At the moment I am struggling with the idea of voting for the principled motion. But I will listen very carefully to the further assurances ministers will give in winding up, because I would rather be in a position of supporting the government." 3:45 p.m. update. Yvette Cooper confirms plan to delay Brexit. Labour's Yvette Cooper has said she will table an amendment to extend Article 50 in the event of no deal. The Normanton, Pontefract and Castleford MP, who chairs the Home Affairs Select Committee, said delaying Britain leaving the EU would avoid living in a fantasy world of a hard Brexit. She said, "If we don't do something sensible like this, it's like we're just all living in a fantasy world in which we talk about alternative arrangements. We say something is going to come along and sort it out, and it just doesn't. It's as if we're all standing around admiring the finery of the Emperor's new clothes, and actually the Emperor is running around stark naked and everyone is laughing at us, or at least they would be if it wasn't so sad. Sir, I really hope the government will show some responsibility. I hope they will end up supporting this bill, and I hope they will end up frankly sorting it out even before we get to that point, before it is too late." Yvette Cooper plans to table an amendment to avoid no-deal Brexit. Image 3 p.m. Downing Street hits back at Dutch leader Rutte. Theresa May's spokeswoman has hit back at Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister, over claims Britain is weakened because of Brexit. Number 10 said, "I disagree entirely. Employment is at a record high, exports are at a record high, companies are continuing to invest in the UK." Deloitte named the UK as Europe's leading destination for foreign direct investment just last month. Mark Rutte called Brexit Britain too small to appear on the world stage. Image Reuters. 2:10 p.m. update. Pro-EU Tory MP urges May to stop trying to please the URG. Ken Clark said Theresa May should put an end to her attempts to please the Eurosceptic URG, chaired by Jacob Rees-Mogg, saying they will reject anything we come back with because some of them want to leave with no deal. He added, "The government has pursued one of the factions on our side of the House. We have a kind of breakaway party within a party, a bit like Momentum really. They've got their leader, they've got the chief whip, they are ardent right-wingers, and the government has set off in pursuit of these bizarre negotiating tactics that some of them say, though some of them seem to want to leave with no deal, because any agreement with foreigners from the continent is a threat to our sovereignty." Mr. Clark also said that the URG is the wrong group to pursue, and called the Brady Amendment meaningless. Ken Clark urged Theresa May to stop trying to please the URG. Image Getty. 1:50 p.m. update. People's Vote supporters wear blindfolds outside Parliament. Supporters of the People's Vote campaign calling for a second referendum are protesting outside the Houses of Parliament. They are holding placards reading, "No blindfold Brexit," and wearing blindfolds themselves. Some are also carrying EU flags and banners bearing the logo of the campaign. 1:40 p.m. update. Government to survive tonight's vote. Rees-Mogg says Jacob Rees-Mogg, Eurosceptic Tory backbencher and chair of the European Research Group ERG told ITV the government is unlikely to be defeated tonight. He said, "Today's business is not fundamentally important. It's all about where the government is going. So this is a secondary issue rather than a primary one, and that's why I think it's highly unlikely people will be voting against this motion." The ERG is meeting today at 4 p.m. to decide how MPs will have to vote later in the afternoon, a source within the group said. They added Steve Barclay's speech in the Commons was good, and it annoyed the right people, supporters of a second referendum protesting outside Parliament. Image PA 1:12 p.m. Update: the alternative arrangements are Brexit unicorns, says Labour and Labour's Pat McFadden branded the alternative arrangements the UK is looking for to avoid a backstop are just Brexit unicorns. He then asked Mr Starmer if he believes the government is hoping German Chancellor Angela Merkel will come to the rescue and throw Ireland under the bus. The Labour shadow Brexit secretary agreed. 1:10 p.m. Update: Keir Starmer attacks Theresa May for running down the clock. Shadow Brexit secretary Keir Starmer accused Theresa May of running down the clock. He said that after weeks and weeks and weeks trying to negotiate changes to the backstop, she has got absolutely nowhere. He then trashed claims from the Prime Minister, who said the vote in the Commons on January 29, where she was given the mandate to renegotiate the backstop, gave clarity. Mr Starmer said she has called for either a time limit to the backstop, or a unilateral exit mechanism, or alternative arrangements. The first two options have been repeatedly ruled out by the EU, and the third is undefined. 12:55 p.m. Update: no-deal Brexit to cause unrest and insecurity in Europe's biggest port. A no-deal Brexit could cause serious problems in the biggest port in Europe, Rotterdam, which handles around 40 metric tons of goods from Britain alone every year, port authorities said. Port Chief Executive Allard Castelline said, "The first days after Brexit will for sure bring unrest and insecurity. We have done everything to be as well prepared as possible, but there will always be problems." 12:40 p.m. Update: Steve Barclay tells Parliament to hold its nerve. MPs should hold the nerve and send a clear message of unity to Brussels in order to obtain more from the EU, the Brexit secretary said during today's Commons debate. Mr Barclay added it is important to have a no deal on the table to get a good deal. He added the government continues to look for technological solutions that would avoid implementing both a backstop and a hard border in Northern Ireland. The secretary added MPs must give more time to the government to get a deal. And answering Yvette Cooper's question about whether the UK will leave the bloc regardless, Mr Barclay said getting a deal is the policy of number 10, but the legal position of the UK is that it will be leaving the EU on March 29. Steve Barclay is answering the Commons questions during today's debate. Image Getty 12:32 p.m. Update: David Davis asks if the UK is really leaving the EU on March 29. The debate kicked off with questions over the chances of taking off the table a no-deal Brexit, with Brexit Secretary Steve Barclay saying the only way to avoid a no-deal is either to secure a deal on the terms set out by the Prime Minister or to revoke Article 50. David Davis, the former Brexit Secretary, asked whether the UK will leave the EU by March 29 even if a deal is not reached by that date. Mr Barclay confirmed that is the intention of the government, signalling to hardline Brexiteers a no deal is not off the table. 12:30 p.m. Update: amendments to be debated by the Commons today revealed. The Speaker of the House has announced the amendments tabled by Jeremy Corbyn, Ian Blackford and Anna Soubry will be debated today. This means there won't be any discussions on an amendment proposing a second referendum. These amendments respectively call on the government to give Parliament either a vote on a revised Brexit deal or a debate on the next steps by February 27, a delay of at least 3 months to the March 29 exit, and the publication of the government's analysis of the impact of a no-deal Brexit on business and trade. The vote on these amendments will take place from 5 p.m. Each vote takes around 15 minutes and the result is read out in Parliament. John Bercow chose 3 amendments among the ones tabled earlier to be debated by MPs today. Image Sky News 12:20 p.m. Update: many Labour MPs support second referendum, says Stephen Doughty MP speaking to Sky News. The Labour MP said the party has been very clear on how to proceed on Brexit. He said, "The Labour has a very clear policy. We said we would look at the deal. If we rejected the deal, we would have pushed for a general election, which we would all like to see, but if that wasn't on table, the conference unitedly voted for putting a public vote on the table and campaign for that. If the government was so confident in the deal, shouldn't be afraid to put that to the people. I don't know anybody who is planning to resign, and is not something I would favour myself. I want to see a united Labour approach to this. It's an issue that goes well beyond the party. We have a complete and utter shambles. The PM is fighting once again with parts of her own party while the clock is ticking down. If Parliament is locked-jammed, then the issue must go back to the people." However, Jeremy Corbyn has never said he would back a second referendum. 11:35 a.m. Update. Commons leader recites poetry ahead of Commons debate. Andrea Leadsom recited poetry as she avoided answering a question over when and if a second meaningful vote on the Brexit deal will take place. Mrs. Leadsom said MPs will consider a series of Brexit-linked statutory instruments and hold general debates on serious violence, NHS, anti-Semitism, and potential future free trade agreements next week, a period which was initially scheduled to be recess. Mrs. Leadsom added, "It's Valentine's Day, so I thought a little poem might be in order. Labour is red, Tories are blue. Our future is bright, with a good deal in sight for the UK and our friends in the EU." When asked whether she would announce the timetable for a new meaningful vote, the Commons leader said, "As Jane Austen said, is not general incivility the very essence of love, so I shall take her slightly unhumorous remarks to be the beginning of a real friendship between us." Andrea Leadsom recited poetry ahead of today's Commons debate. Image Getty. 11:10 a.m. Update. 10 amendments on today's Commons order paper revealed. These are the 10 amendments on the order paper. 1. Labour Party's amendment forcing Theresa May to present a deal to Parliament by February 27.2. Ken Clarke's amendment saying there should be a ballot, allowing MPs to choose from a range of Brexit options using the alternative vote system. 3. Angus Brendan McNeill's amendment, which calls for Article 50 to be revoked. 4. Anna Sober's amendment saying the government should publish its official advice about the impact of a no-deal Brexit. 5. Sarah Wollaston's amendment, which says MPs should vote on various Brexit options. According to this amendment, if more than one option is approved, they should all be put to the public in a referendum. 6. Plaid Cymru's amendment calling for both an extension of Article 50 and a referendum. 7. Geraint Davies's amendment, which backs a deal only if it is amended according to Labour's demands and if approved by a second referendum. 8. SNP amendments calling for an extension to Article 50 of at least 3 months. 9. Lib Dems amendment saying, if there is no deal by the 27th of February, May should ask to extend Article 50 to allow for a referendum. 10. Roger Godsoff's amendment calling for a 3-option referendum. 10:30 a.m. Update. SNP tables motion for Article 50 extension. Ian Blackford, the SNP's leader in Westminster, said his party has tabled an amendment to today's motion requiring the British government to start immediate talks with Donald Tusk's European Council to extend the UK's permanence in the EU by at least 3 months. He told BBC Scotland's Good Morning Scotland programme that this motion would prevent Britain to leave without a deal. He added, Parliament has the chance to instruct the government to act and it must do so. Nicola Sturgeon, the party leader and First Minister of Scotland, added Edinburgh has stepped up its preparations for a no-deal Brexit. Mark Rutte said the UK will be weakened by Brexit. Image Getty. 10 a.m. Update. Dutch Prime Minister says Brexit Britain will be too small to be relevant around the world. Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, said the UK will be weakened by Brexit and its economy alone won't be able to compete around the world. He told Spanish newspaper El País, it is the UK that will be weakened. It is already weakening. It is on the way, and compared to 2 or 3 years ago, it is going to become a middling economy stuck in the Atlantic Ocean. It is neither the US nor the EU. It is too small to appear on the world stage on its own. Mr. Rutte also shows Doubts the UK and the EU will be able to thrash a deal before March 29. He continued, "My impression is that the ball is advancing towards the precipice and everyone is screaming stop, but nobody is doing anything to prevent it, at least from the British side. Some British parliamentarians say that we want to trap them in a permanent limbo. But it is not true. The EU is interested in moving to the next phase as soon as possible and starting a new relationship with the United Kingdom, but given May's efforts to renegotiate the Irish backstop, I do not know how this will end and whether we can avoid a hard Brexit. It would be devastating for the UK." 9:50 p.m. update. Steve Baker, MP, urges Tories not to rule out no-deal Brexit. Steve Baker, deputy chair of the influential Tory pro-Brexit said Conservative MPs should not be associated with anything which seems to take a no-deal Brexit off the table, as it would hurt the negotiating strategy and would not be in the national interest. 9:30 a.m. update. Theresa May urged to delay Brexit by dozens of British diplomats. More than 40 UK diplomats have called on Theresa May to extend Article 50. The Times wrote, the diplomats argued delaying Brexit is the best option the UK currently has, as it would give time to clarify the terms of the future relationship between Britain and the EU or allow for a second referendum. This comes after Mrs May's top Brexit aide Ollie Robbins was overheard in a hotel bar in Brussels saying the EU is likely to extend Article 50. Jeremy Corbyn said a customs union membership is the best deal for the UK. Image PA. 9:10 a.m. update. Ford warns of consequences of no-deal Brexit and threatens to take action if necessary. Ford warned leaving the EU without a deal would have catastrophic consequences. Amid speculations the company may be ramping up preparations to move its production abroad, with only 44 days to go before Brexit Day. The chances of a no-deal scenario are getting increasingly higher, a Ford spokesman said. We have long urged the UK government and Parliament to work together to avoid the country leaving the EU on a no-deal, hard Brexit basis on March 29. Such a situation would be catastrophic for the UK auto industry and Ford's manufacturing operations in the country. We will take whatever action is necessary to preserve the competitiveness of our European business. 8:40 a.m. update. EU27 are watching closely what happens in the UK, says Fox International Trade Secretary Liam Fox believes the EU27 are watching closely the debate in the British Parliament over Brexit to make decisions over possible concessions to grant the UK. Particular attention is being given to how Parliament is voting on amendments to the withdrawal agreement, he added. He told the BBC, I think that our European partners will be watching to see, if they make those concessions, do they think that Parliament would be likely then to pass that agreement? We have to be very aware that this is not an academic debate. It is listened to quite seriously by those who will be negotiating with the UK. 8:10 a.m. update. Labour demands Prime Minister to put her deal to a Commons vote by the end of the month. Following Theresa May's announcement she will update Parliament on February 26. If a deal is still not ready to be voted, Labour has tabled an amendment demanding the Prime Minister to either put her agreement to a Commons vote by February 27 or allow Parliament to take control of the process. Jeremy Corbyn has voiced his opposition to a no-deal Brexit, urging Mrs May to take the option off the table, and has declared a customs union membership the best Brexit outcome for Britain. But he has failed to openly back or reject other options, such as supporting the People's Vote campaign or a long extension to Article 50. This lack of clarity over which Brexit positions the leader of the Labour Party is backing has been slammed by the Prime Minister during yesterday's PMQs, arguing he prefers ambiguity rather than acting in the national interest. Mrs May said, "We don't know whether their leader backs a second referendum, we don't know whether their leader backs a deal, we don't even know if he backs Brexit. He prefers ambiguity and playing politics to acting in the national interest. People used to say he was a conviction politician, not anymore."